Welcome everyone to Aging in Action, and we're very happy to have with us today Louise Essiembre, who is an agent with Billyard Insurance Group, and I'm saying all that right, Louise?
Yeah, it's Billyard Insurance Group. That's correct.
Okay.
Welcome, Louise.
Welcome.
Yeah, and today what we thought we'd talk about is travel insurance, because some of us can't travel.
Yeah, the world's opening back up. We all want to know perfect timing, Louise. The snow's here.
I know, at least in my household, there's issues about traveling. My husband has a hard time getting travel insurance, so that's one reason I'm sort of interested in this topic too. So Louise, tell us a bit about yourself. How long have you been in the insurance industry?
Well, thank you, Gwen. So I've been in the insurance industry now for about 10 years. I started off with selling mostly commercial and personal insurance. And then I had more of a focus on commercial for about 4 years, but now I pretty much sell the personal insurance, commercial, as well as travel now. So I'm really excited about our travel product, actually, because I've always been intrigued and always wanted to offer that to our clients.
So what is travel insurance?
Well, with travel insurance, you can choose, there's different plans that you can choose from. So we have like an all-inclusive plan, which would cover like trip interruption, trip cancellation, the medical, and as well with the travel, with the cancellation, it does also come with the baggage as well if you choose the select package. So I thought maybe I'd talk a little bit about each different packages, and then we can kind of take it from there.
Sure.
So as far as the medical, because I think that's one of the biggest question, especially when it comes to the seniors trying to obtain the medical portion of the travel insurance. So of course, we at Billyard, we have access to 2 different companies. So we can sell for a company called Alliance as well as To Go. Now, Alliance seems to be the best company for seniors for all age groups. And however, I mean, of course, there is a medical questionnaire. So of course, a lot of people are asking as well is what's included with this medical questionnaire and what are the exclusions? So it's essentially any pre-existing conditions. So let's say somebody has been diagnosed with stage 3 cancer. So that would be an exclusion. However, it doesn't mean that just because Alliance will not be able to offer a quote for somebody who has been diagnosed with cancer, it doesn't mean that we can't find a product for them. And if I can't find a product for them, I will make sure to find somebody who can offer this type of coverage. I actually know a couple who's traveling right now actually for cancer treatments, and they were able to obtain medical insurance for his wife who was diagnosed with cancer with another insurance market. So there are options out there for sure.
And I think that's one of the big concerns as we get older. I know even myself, that's kind of top of mind. It's like, oh, we better travel before we can't anymore, right? So is there such a thing like you're talking about the stage 4 cancer, but so what if I develop, I don't know, diabetes or something? Can I still travel and just, I guess, not be covered for that? Is that kind of how that works?
Some insurance company will allow that you exclude all pre-existing conditions, but others won't as well. So it all depends on the insurance market. Now, I think the most type of conditions that we see is heart condition, kidney failure, clients who have a hard time with day-to-day activities, who are using a walker, have a hard time maybe going to a washroom, or because I guess the risk for those clients is a lot higher. But again, we can definitely see what we can do to find an insurer that will be able to insure those conditions.
They're about I know some of the questionnaires was like how stable you are with your drugs. Like, is it that you have to be stable for 3 months or stable for 6 months? Or that seems to be one of the things, because sometimes, a drug is taken away, which could be a good thing, right? But what is that about the drug situation?
That will depend on the insurance markets. Some companies will require, let's say somebody who has been on a particular type of medication for the last, like you mentioned, like 3 months. But I think at the end of the day, it's mostly what is current and what has been diagnosed in the last year. I think I don't think it would matter like if there's medication involved or not. I mean, typically speaking, with cancer or diabetes, automatically there are medication. But I think it's mostly the actual condition itself.
Okay.
Yeah. I know for us, with John being a diabetic, and when we travel, we always get that letter from, that travel letter to put in our bag with all our medications. You have, pumper insulin going through the machines, they beep, you got to do different things. So I think it's always a great, if you do have a concern about traveling, and I know for myself, you just talk to your healthcare provider. Like, find out what could potentially be risks and associate them fairly, then be fully transparent, though I think on the paperwork is also really important, right? Don't try and hide it, because if something should happen, it could be very costly.
Exactly. Not only costly, but evidently a claim could potentially get denied at that point. And we definitely don't want that. It's, with the healthcare questionnaire, it's not too in-depth, but it could seem a little general, where at that point I would take a look at the actual wordings and speak with underwriters and make sure that it's approved before the policy is purchased. And like I mentioned earlier, there are some markets that will offer medical for somebody who has the types of conditions that are typically excluded.
Louise, is there an age range that individuals should be looking at when they're looking at getting travel insurance? If you're traveling with a family, should you be looking at all family members traveling? I think someone could break a leg or have an accident just as easily as a senior if they're a young youth.
Exactly. So all age groups should obtain travel insurance. Anyone who is under the age of 60 years old does not have to complete a medical questionnaire. However, those pre-existing conditions still apply. So yes, they don't have to complete the medical. However, they essentially say that they don't have any pre-existing conditions. What's really neat with some of the products that we offer with our travel is, if something happens to you where you need to be hospitalized, the insurance company will ensure that you have somebody there with you. So they'll pay for either a family member or a friend, somebody you are traveling with, to stay with you in the hospital, and they will cover their extra costs as well. So you're not alone.
Well, I've heard of some young people in their 20s, maybe you're having a lot of fun and you break a leg or something and you're in a foreign country. That can really add up to a lot of money if you haven't taken the coverage out.
Mm-hmm. Yes, exactly. So it doesn't matter how old the traveler is, you should definitely look at getting a travel insurance policy in place.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, it's just you're bringing this up, and I've traveled, you're speaking of hurting yourself, and I had a friend of mine actually cut her foot at a resort and had to go for stitches. And that's when I found out that there was such a thing as having a policy where you have to pay first and then you get reimbursed when you get home, or they pay. And I mean, that could be, I think my friend of mine was pretty lucky that she was able to afford the stitches that she needed, but because her policy was a reimburse after. So I've heard, some of these things can cost a lot of money. So is that something people should look at when they're buying insurance as well, whether it's the pay before or after? I sound like a fast food versus fine dining.
No, that's absolutely correct. You definitely need to look at your policy and talk to your agent or your broker to see if those costs are payment up front or if it's something that the insurance company handles to pay right away. Because every insurance company is different, but I know with Alliance, they do pay a lot of the items for you. So if you get hospitalized or whatnot, they can call the hospital and pay your care.
I mean, in some countries, it could be add up to thousands or tens of thousands of dollars,
yes,
depending what's going on. Having a heart attack,
you'd have to remortgage your house. You know what I mean? If you didn't have that kind of money.
Well, yes, I've heard of that. Oh, yeah, one of my husband's brother's friends had a heart attack while he was away and didn't have coverage. So that's a lot of money.
It definitely is. And it depends on the country as well, because even if the insurer will pay for the fees for you, it depends on the country if they will accept that as well, because some hospitals in certain countries will say, we would prefer that you just pay everything up front, then you can claim through your insurance company. It's similar to if you go see the optometrist, some optometrists will be able to do direct billing, whereas others won't as well.
Louise, and I think like Lisette was just mentioning a little bit of the cost. What is the average for an individual? So a typical couple going away, they're going to hit the Dominican Republic, or that, they're maybe first time travelers. They've never had that luxury or experience in the past, and the world's opening up. They're like, let's hit up a trip. What would be that common denominator or average that most families could think about that they should be taking into consideration in that budget piece of it?
Well, I'm glad you asked, Joy, because I actually did a brief quote for someone under the age of 59 who doesn't have any pre-existing conditions. They would look at about $120, $120, $130 for, let's say, 1 week to Costa Rica. Whereas somebody over the age of 59 would be looking at between $140 to $160 for 1 week to Costa Rica. So it depends also on the location versus the amount of days that they'll be away.
So very affordable when you consider all things. You could have a flight cancellation, you could lose your luggage, you could have an injury, I don't know, stingray swimming in the ocean, like something could, come about. So when you think of it in the cost of travel, it really is very affordable.
Right. And that's based on if your flights are about 1,500. So it's a bit in that range. And you would have, I believe the policy limit would be up to 10 million. And there's about $500 for lost luggage. If your luggage is just delayed, I believe after 12 hours, the insurance company can pay up to $200 for expenses if you need to purchase some clothes or while waiting for your luggage. And then it also includes the accidental death and dismemberment. So you would assign a beneficiary before you leave on your trip. That way, if something happens while you're away, the insurance company knows who to contact and whatnot should something happen.
So I have a question. You're speaking about different countries. Is there certain countries that the insurance costs more to go there?
I believe so, yes. As far as to pinpoint which country in particular, I'm not quite sure, but it's something that can be discussed when the time comes.
Well, it must be, because there are some countries in turmoil, which would probably be a whole other issue for insurance companies, right?
Definitely.
There's such a thing as COVID insurance. What's that about? I mean, we never would have heard that 3 years ago, but now we are talking about it. So what does that entail?
So the COVID package, the COVID plan is not included in the all-inclusive, but it's something that you can purchase separately, and that's usually about $20. So it's not very expensive. And so that plan would actually cover if you are diagnosed with COVID while traveling, They will cover your hospitalization. They'll cover for somebody to stay with you. They'll cover the trip interruption, because you'll evidently have to rebook your flight to return home. And they'll make sure that that you do get home safe once you're clear of COVID. So that can occur also as you're boarding, and while evidently while you're on your trip.
Louise, what about additional work coverage? So many individuals have policies, you know, their work benefits, and they also have travel included to some degree. Is it still advisable to get additional coverage on top of that?
I think at that point, because I actually had a situation recently where a client of mine did have some coverage through work, but it didn't include like cancellation. It only included the medical portion. So it's where I would come in at that point where I would analyze the policy and see exactly what you have, so that I make sure that I can offer some packages that you don't currently have, so that you don't have to pay more for the insurance. And it all depends on the limits as well, because if you have a policy through work that may only have like $1 million in coverage, that's where I can come in and offer the full 10. So it would all depend on the wordings.
Yeah, I was just going to say too, there's also credit cards that have coverage. I hear that all the time. Oh, I've got coverage through my credit card. But same idea, I guess. You would have to make sure what are the limits of those coverages on that card.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And I believe some banks as well may have some coverage, and even just regular health and benefit plans that you may have. Let's say someone who's retired who have that type of coverage, that may also be a policy that's included. So if that occurs, then I can definitely take a look at what's currently included and then offer to comprehend the policy.
What would the timelines be like, Louise? If somebody's thinking of traveling and they're booking a trip, I'm going to just assume that they're not just going to night before say, oh, I better get travel insurance. They're going to kind of do their due diligence. But in the event of a last minute trip and they're like, you know what, I'm out. That will be me. When should they start reaching out to you, an insurance agent, policyholder, to say, hey, this is, you know, we're looking at taking a trip, March break, maybe families. When should they start, you know, reaching out, getting their applications in process, filling out the forms, and getting their facts together?
Sooner the better. However, you mentioned last minute traveler. That has occurred. Actually, a day and a half before the client went away, they, I guess, had finally gotten in touch with their credit card company, and they realized they do not have the travel insurance included. So that's when I was able to get a policy with them in place. If there's no, I guess, underwriting criteria or approval needed, I'm able to bind on the spot. So even if it's a last minute thing, I'm able to do so. But then if it's a situation where we need underwriting approval, then at that point, there may be a possibility where the client may not be able to obtain the travel insurance on time. So definitely sooner rather than later.
So just to clarify, because now I'm curious, you need to have it before you hit that tarmac, right? Like you have to have it. You can't be on your flight saying, hey, I'm in the midst of the air and I need to have travel insurance. Like,
that's right. That's correct.
Right. Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Somebody may want to know, Lisette.
That's like me with my phone plan as I'm on the tarmac going, God, I forgot to get the package.
Yeah, exactly. Right? Travel. Exactly. All right. That's a really, thanks, Louise. That's a good point.
One thing I was curious about too, Louise, and I don't know if you would, but traveling in Canada, I just assumed because we think it's universal coverage right across Canada, but each province, I guess, is an individual. So if I want to go to BC, what happens if something happens to me out there?
I do believe that your OHIP coverage will cover you up to, if I'm not mistaken, it's 60 days or 90 days if you're away. So if you're only away a couple of weeks, then your insurance, your OHIP definitely will cover you. Because I go in across Canada for conferences, and every time that I go, like I know that if something was to occur, that the OHIP would cover the cost.
What is it though? I've heard something about like flights, air flights or something. You call it like somebody's having a problem and they get flown by helicopter or whatever. And I've heard there's been controversy about that between the provinces, or I don't know. There's something in the back of my brain about that.
I do know that for emergency travel, it would be like if you would be in Ontario. So if you need an ambulance, they have to charge a fee, and that'll depend on what you currently have with your work benefits. So as far as OHIP goes, I believe it's strictly for medical if you need to be hospitalized or whatnot, but anything related to prescriptions or whatnot, that's all depending on what you currently have with your health benefit plan.
Yeah.
With COVID and the pandemic, kind of life changing a little bit, are you finding there's been an increase in phone calls coming your way? Emails saying, hey, like we're looking at traveling now. What are our numbers? Are you seeing that increase today?
Most definitely. Yes, most definitely, especially since COVID, everybody is, it's becoming a fear to travel because you're afraid to get sick. And so we've definitely seen an increase in calls since COVID pertaining to travel, most definitely.
So it's becoming a bigger part of your portfolio than it would have been before. And that's good. Yeah.
Louise, we're coming down to the last couple of minutes of today's taping of our episode of travel and insurance. Is there any last words that you would like to share?
Last words. I just wanted to thank all of you for having me on the show. If you know anybody who is looking for travel insurance, personal insurance, commercial insurance, we even offer life insurance. Billyard Insurance Group is a one-stop shop. Don't hesitate to give me a call.
Is there a website that individuals can go to Louise, to get information about travel and insurance?
Yes, definitely. So I actually have a landing page, which is www.thebig.ca/Louise.
Perfect. We'll get that information from you, Louise, and we'll definitely share all that information to our viewers and listeners as we do go podcast also, to give everyone an opportunity to start thinking. I'm sure many of us, and I know Lisette's already in that world, but many of us are thinking of that deep dive of travel and getting back into whatever it may be, snow, sand, whatever works to their fancy. But we do appreciate you taking the time with us today. And as always, thank you everyone for joining, and we look forward to seeing you again next week on Aging in Action. Thank you, everyone. Goodbye.
Thank you. Bye.